Okay, I guess we can reconvene. Just concluded our field trip, to listen to the generator. I think the consensus was that it wasn't a problem. That's the board agree with that?
Yes, I appreciate you doing that for us. It was
Very
good.
No problem.
We're probably gonna take action on here, so as far as, I appreciate the offer for tonight, and that's great, but you don't really need to do that if we're gonna give approval today here.
Okay. So
I
you
do
want
appreciate the
more?
offer. Yeah, as far as I was concerned, it was certainly audible, but not that unpleasant a sound. Turned on the 4 lights and it didn't rev up to the point where, it was even noticeable. So I would think that, although I think, on a winter's night, on calm night with the snow on the ground, and, it's hardened a little bit, and there's still heavy air. You're probably gonna hear a little bit more, but the windows are closed in the winter time. There's gonna be more noise from other things there too, so I think if it's kept to decent hours in the evening, I don't see a real problem with it, sound-wise.
Do we have any more questions? We'll close the public hearing. Any other questions? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and we start the deliberations. I think the consensus here is that the plan as presented is acceptable.
Do you want to put anything in there about if this should not work out, that there be some attempt at replanting trees on the hillside if we want that?
I'm not sure if we can.
I'm not sure if it's even
Yeah,
advisable. I'm just,
yeah, no, it's
we
a
should
point,
discuss
but
it.
I'm not sure if we're, it's their property and it's their trees. And I suspect very strongly, there's gonna be an initial reaction saying, oh my goodness, what happened to all those trees? And then 3 days later, they'll get used to seeing the slope and they'll be the end of that. I mean, that's what happens.
Reaction
I mean, I've been coming up,
next Tuesday with chainsaws.
I mean,
That's why we're running them on Tuesday. Before the weekend.
I've been coming up here for years and things have been built in that time and I really can't remember what it looked like before they were built.
Right.
So, memory adapts very quickly, saying, oh my God, they cut all those trees down. 3 days later, it's like, oh yeah, that's always been there. I mean, that's been my case. I have selective memory. I do remember every fish I caught, but anyway,
Every fish you see.
Never bring back the evidence.
do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the, plan that's been submitted.
Okay, I have a second.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Still have an opposed?
No, I'm abstaining.
No.
You get paid big bucks to make this correct.
Yeah.
And that's, abstaining is a no, right?
In that case, I'm gonna take a roll call of members
Okay.
with a voice vote, just to record it. Start with Nancy.
Thanks, Terry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bob Gilbert, yes.
Abstain.
Kuchowski, yes.
Pecos, yes? Oh,
No. Yeah, you are.
no, she
Oh,
said
no.
Cheryl here, no.
Oh, yeah, you are. No, see.
Nancy?
You unseated her when you took it in.
I thought you unseated, I thought
Yeah, he did.
you unseated.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm confused.
Okay, I guess it's Cheryl.
Yes.
So we have,
Harry makes number 7, so you should let Harry vote. He should still
I
be
can't see
seated.
for the select.
Oh, for the selectmen, that's right.
Yeah.
Bill's the one that's missing, sorry.
Yeah.
So there are 6 members.
So we have 5, we have 5 yeses and 1 abstention. Okay,
Are we having them come back next year? I mean, is that just
For
for discussion
discussion.
in April?
well, it's not a condition of the approval, but we can certainly request them to come in in
Could
the
we-
spring.
We will absolutely be here.
To have a review,
You know where to find me.
yeah.
If I don't show up, you know where to come find me.
Just to
No,
see how it went
Yeah, of
and any concerns that we've gotten back from the town or the
absolutely. And what we'll
townspeople.
probably do is just, not to interrupt your meeting, we'll probably do some guest surveys as well over the winter, so we can bring that information back, what the guests thought, what they wanted to see, all that kind of stuff. And we'll also obviously get input from both the selectmen and the, Chris as well, from a safety aspect,
Okay.
whether it worked. Our ski patrollers who will be up there, incident reports, how we handle. That's actually one of our bigger concerns, how do we handle, and I think we have it all in place. We'll have a ski patroller down there, how we handle the safety aspects in case there are injuries. Every once in a while, you do get someone who falls off or bumps their head or something.
Yeah.
But, and then we'll kind of keep the discussion very robust.
What I'd like to do is put it on the agenda for some month. Is April too soon? And I know you kind of shut down for May, maybe June is the best.
No, April or May, I mean, the business shuts down, but we're always working, so April or May. is
Do you
usually
have a
pretty good.
preference for which one?
Keith, when do you on vacation?
Usually in April sometime, I would say May.
May, yes.
Okay.
Third, second, Tuesday of the
Second,
Second,
Thursday.
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 Yeah, so maybe May, that'd be good.
Okay, we'll put you on the schedule for May for a review. Okay, next on the agenda, I'm gonna skip down to the skateboard park review. Well, you're all here. Go back. It's time for the review of the skateboard park. How successful was your camp this year?
We cut back to, I believe Luke had another meeting to go to, but, last summer, due to lack of numbers, we cut it back to 5 weeks. From the normal 7, I think, 7 or 8. We ran it just 5 weeks this summer, did much better than we did in the 5 weeks last summer. And we're considering, I mean, and that's kind of flexible with us, we can bring that up. If applications roll in big time in the springtime, we can bump it back up. I mean, that's what we'd love to do, that's what we've historically done. The last 2 years have been shorter seasons for us.
And then the off time, has that been monitored? Is there somebody there to
Yeah,
monitor?
Lou goes down usually once a week and checks out, right after Columbus Day, we'll do what we normally do, they'll go down and do the final pickup,
Yeah.
but it is still open to the public.
I noticed when the split rail fence started to deteriorate, we went in there and fixed it, that was good, glad to see that.
Yeah, and I think they put down, we brought in a dump truck load of chips and remulched around.
Yeah.
That's a normal springtime routine, they'll be down there in the month of April and May, rebuilding any features. They didn't do any major rebuilds, but painting and dressing it all up. And we always allow money in the budget to redo the fence and get chips in there and keep it looking halfway decent.
I noticed in walking around the top of the structure, there was a couple places, you know, where the plywood panels on the level where it goes down to the sloping areas there. Some of them were actually broken right through and there was holes in them. Did somebody go through and,
They should be replacing those in the springtime. I mean, we don't go in and rebuild the whole thing, and some of that occurs over the course of the summertime. And some of the kids, I mean, it looks good, and you end up sitting on the edges and banging your feet, and
Yeah.
one goes through, and rather than stop progress and compact it in the springtime, those things will all be cleaned up.
I would encourage somebody to get up there, just walk that area, because there was 2 or 3 places where it had broken through the holes actually in the deck there, that, somebody's foot could go through. Not that this will be walking.
I'll bring that up to Luke, and go back up tomorrow.
Any other questions? Have a motion?
Is there a motion required?
Yeah, I think so.
I think continue.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll make a motion, we extend the state park permit for upcoming season.
Till October next year.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. With that, subdivision regulations, the proposed changes, I think you all have a copy. We'll have this in place in the springtime, and then we got sidetracked and talking about other possible changes, but I guess it's time to clean this up and conclude on it.
What do we have to do?
So I guess the change is D, right?
Well, there's 2 changes.
Two changes, what do we got?
This is the old one.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we're having a public hearing on this, so I'm gonna open a public hearing. Tom?
Sounds good to me.
You're the public.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't comment. Neither one of us can.
Actually, that's
I'm sorry.
correct. Yeah.
She's the public.
I'm a public.
She's the public. We can't,
I'm sorry.
we can't comment. We're Thornton Camptonites.
Oh, okay. So we do have a public hearing.
Oh, Bill's back.
Oh.
Bill's back.
Okay. He's a public.
Oh, he lives in Thornton too. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
We're all from Campton.
First one is the application
Public hearing.
land requirements. Boundaries of any proposed forest cuttings or land alterations to accommodate the subdivision.
Is there a draft of this?
Right here.
And we were changing, was getting rid of a plan showing, right?
Yeah.
Construct a plan showing where, just to be consistent with the CUD. Yeah. GH.
I think that's more of a clarification than,
Well, we were actually changing it though, that item was not there. It was an added item, and then we just amended the bill and put in. So that has to be approved as an added item.
you wanna vote on this one separately or vote on the second one, is the buildings, right? A shaded area representing the feasible building envelope demonstrating the buildability of each lot in relation to topography. Wetland setback requirements, open space requirements, access parking, and snow clearing.
This is in all zones?
I believe so,
Yeah.
yes. Refresh my memory. was your
Yeah.
proposal, right?
Yeah, there was, it started out with an idea that it didn't really, we're trying to show in the subdivision plan that the lot that's being created is a buildable lot. Right. And so it was determined that the best way to do this is to show the envelope within which a building could be built on that lot and still meet the setback requirements and all the various requirements that are required, and to show it in relationship to the wetland setback. Open spaces.
One thing that's missing in the proposal that was given for this one was the, hold on. Open space is not in this one. That was handed out for today's meeting.
What was it? Sorry.
Our old one you read from, so that it was the wetlands, requirement setbacks, open space. Open space is not in this,
On the public hearing notice?
on the public hearing notice. But just to bring it to your attention, that it should be put in.
It wasn't omitted for any,
No, we didn't, we never
Right.
crossed it off.
I don't understand how it could be in the public notice without it and be here
And
with
it,
it.
it's not in the public notice today at all. That's why I went back and looked at the old minutes when he read it, because he was reading off of,
the reading of this.
off of this.
That's what I have.
Yeah, and in today's, it's not there.
Did we use a different file with the open space? Or with open space in the public
I
hearing?
just wanted to make sure that.
Because the public hearing notice didn't have all the wording, did it?
Well, it had the word, the public hearing minutes has the wording that, for today, what we talked about, except, like I said, that one piece was omitted, the open space part was omitted on this one today, where it was included in the one that we originally talked about and got struck things from it.
Well, if you don't consider it a significant change to what was posted, you're fine. If you think that it materially changes it, you should wait and repost it, but
Yeah, but it would be, but as far as a public hearing goes, does that make it significantly different than what was posted? I don't believe so.
and that's up to the board. If you don't think it materially changes what was posted, then
I
Vote
don't
on
think
it.
it will change.
I
You don't think so, Gary? I just don't want it to come back,
Yeah, no,
Well,
that's a
let
good
it-
catch.
you know?
well, take
No,
a vote.
It's
Take
only
a
one
vote.
of several items that was
Right.
listed.
And you noticed the hearing, you noticed that you were changing the subdivision regs, and I don't think you materially changed it, but you should just vote that you didn't, and then it's in the minutes, and
Okay.
you're good to go.
Yeah, motion.
What am I making a motion that
Well,
we
this-
accept, the Article 5, Section E, Item 3, with the inclusion,
Mhm.
as printed for the public hearing, but with the inclusion of open space.
And that it doesn't we're not approving it,
Right.
we just,
Amending it?
no, we're
No.
just saying that it doesn't significantly change
Change,
what
okay.
was posted.
Right.
So what do I need to finish saying? I'm lost.
That it doesn't
And it
significantly,
doesn't
That it doesn't significantly alter what was
post notice.
noticed for the public hearing.
you have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Now we can talk about this, now we can vote for this. Do we wanna vote on each one separately, or, well, I guess we should.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the definition of building envelope?
The perimeter in which a building can be built.
So if you had a typical residential lot that was a half acre in size and it had 20-foot setbacks on the side and 35-foot setbacks on the front, and you could legitimately say the building envelope is the same as the setback lines.
If there was nothing else that would limit it, such as wetlands or something like that, yes.
Right. Do you need a definition of building envelope in your definitions?
Yeah, just, and I agree with Bill, listening to your discussions, you've talked about a rectangle or some sort of shape on the lot, showing that it's a buildable lot. But I agree with Bill that the developer could just shade everything that isn't a setback or a wetland or something like that. And that would be where a building could legitimately be.
I think
But
originally.
that
the
isn't
dis-
how you've been discussing it.
Well, originally, you're right. Originally, I had suggested a typical rectangle that would
Mhm.
represent a building, but then further discussion went on to say, I think it was pointed out to me, that's not really the best idea. The best idea would be to draw the envelope within which a building could be built. And that's the intent right now, is to, as Bill described.
Shade
it,
everything.
Yeah, shade
Okay.
what is, any
Buildable.
place that a building could be built.
Does that include open space or, because in some cases, the building can be built within that shaded area, but you can't build a building that covers the entire shaded area.
If the other restrictions did not provide open space enough, then the envelope would not be able to include such open space as would be required. It's up to the engineer to decide how much available space and what available space is to put that building. And that was the intent, to make it as loose, or not as loose, but I mean as flexible
Mhm.
as possible, to give the developer the opportunity to not lock himself in, because originally the zoning said, show me where the building's going to be. Show me how big it's going to be, and show me a plan and a profile. And we said, that's not necessary, really. We're trying to give the developer more flexibility than that, just by saying.
Yeah.
But we were concerned that we weren't approving a lot that wasn't gonna be buildable, and so all we were asking is to demonstrate that it is indeed a buildable lot. I think it really made it more flexible.
Okay.
But what does it mean in relation to topography, open space, access, parking, snow? What does that mean in relation to?
It would be on the same plan as would have the contours, the setback lines, the open space, suggested open space lines, wetlands, anything that would be restricted.
Well, maybe the
But
language
for a
should be,
residential lot, for residential subdivision, of which there isn't gonna be another one in Waterville Valley that I know of, but if there was one, you can't show open space until you know what your building square footage is. I mean, I don't know what in relation to means in terms of what you actually have to show the planning board.
Well, if you were going to be using the area within the setback for your open space, then I would say you would indicate it on the plan. This is left open for open space.
But you
If
don't-
on the other,
but
if in fact it wasn't enough, then you would have to show some sort of, either a note or something within that setback requirement that said additional space cannot be left for open space.
But you can't calculate, you're talking about a lot that no building's being proposed on, something that you want to know that it can be buildable.
Right.
You don't know what the open space is gonna be until the plan's submitted. And in the setback lines, you could put sidewalks or parking or stuff, all that's not included in open space because it's hard surface. I think you're asking for information that is either gonna be supplied to you like this, because it's absolutely worthless, or you're gonna get BS. The bottom line is, your subdivision regulations require a statement from an engineer saying that the land's suitable for the development that's proposed.
That's fine with in addition to it, but I do believe.
Draw on the thing up there, what you would
Right now,
propose.
right now, the subdivision requirement requires that you show where the house is going to be.
No, only if it's proposed. If there's no house proposed, you do not have to show it. So if I come in for a single-family subdivision, I do not have to show any buildings on any lots, because I'm not proposing to build any buildings on any lots.
Then you're asking for approval for a lot that we have no idea whether it's buildable or not.
Well, I would hope you do. You've got setback lines, you've got wetlands, you have grades, you've got a statement from an engineer. I mean, I, as a practical matter, I don't think this is gonna, I don't think this is gonna amount to anything. It doesn't matter to me in terms of single-family home sites, because I don't know where you're ever gonna have another subdivision that does that. And, but I mean, you're asking for information that's not available at the time of the subdivision. And nobody wants to create a lot that someone can't use it for its intended use.
Not necessarily so, but it's possible. Well, okay, I mean,
I mean, that's just my feeling.
yeah, I understand.
I don't know, if you could draw on that board and tell me what you expect to see, I would be really interested in knowing it.
Well, if you had a lot, such as this, and you would draw the setback lines on it, and maybe wetlands. And perhaps, yeah, maybe an easement. That you would then say, this is the buildable area.
Except when you read this, it says also in regard to access, parking, snow clearing, storage. Like how does someone figure that one out?
Well, what you would have to do, I guess, that's a good point, because you don't know where the snow storage is going to be.
Yeah, especially in something that's completely undeveloped.
But it would be up to the developer, I think, to show that it's possible to do.
But the other thing we need to include on that too, which we haven't, and we may as well expose everything, topography, grades.
Well, okay. Yeah. You would show
Because
them
that way,
contours.
yeah, because
Man-
that way,
man
that
makes-
even limits you even more.
No,
Well, it
man
might, it
makes
might not.
bulldozers, man makes dynamite.
Yeah.
All of that is buildable depending on how much you wanna spend
Well, that's,
to alter the
Yeah.
terrain.
And so far, all of that stuff that you've got on that map so far is required.
Right. And with regard to the contours, a lot of times, Mark, yeah, you change the contours, but if you were to have an area like this, where the contours are very steep,
yeah,
Yeah,
and we did,
then you would probably eliminate that as a buildable area, unless the contractor or the developer could convince you that you would build a retaining wall or something like that. I think that you need that information in order to assure yourself that you're not approving a lot that can't be built on. And I think if you eliminate snow storage, and if you eliminate open space, and say all around here in the setback, there was just, for some reason, and I can't think of a reason right now, it couldn't be used for snow storage, then you would just have to allot a little place out here. The developer would say, well, okay, I'm gonna say this is allotted for snow storage, so many square feet. All we're, they're not locked into that at all. All we're saying is, show me that there's enough room to build a building on this lot. And I don't think it's an unreasonable request, and I don't think it's an expensive request. Because you're not being asked to show the exact building that you're planning there, just that you can put a building on it.
but what size building?
You're gonna get
Well, it doesn't make a difference as long as you got a.
bullshit in, bullshit out. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's,
Well, it's bullshit that I'm happy with.
well,
And that I would feel more confident in approving a lot that had that bullshit on it.
If you've got all the information that's on there,
Not necessarily.
if you've got all the information that's required in the subdivision regulations, you should be able to make that judgment. You, the planning board.
Mhm.
Just gross assumption on my part. If you've got a lot that's it's a problem. You can say, I want the engineer's statement specific to lot 22, because I'm concerned that it's too steep, or too much ledge, or something. But it seems to me that you folks have the expertise and the information to request more specific information if there's a lot that you think might be problematic.
And the reason for not necessarily having all of the information in one place like this?
You don't know what the open space is gonna be, you don't know where the access is gonna be, you don't know how much parking that particular person wants, you don't know where the snow storage is gonna be. You can't do an open space calculation until you have that information. You've asked for information that either doesn't exist or you want someone to fabricate.
So because your developer can't determine whether it's buildable or not, we're supposed to be able to do it.
I don't think I've ever brought a lot to you that's not buildable as a developer. I've never done it any time in my life. And maybe you anticipate having problems with that in the future, but, you know, I don't see the opportunity for another single-family residential subdivision in the valley, so go implement that. And all of my stuff that is high-density residential, when you look at a subdivision, there will be a proposed building and all of that information is gonna be available. So I really don't care. I just hate seeing regulations put into place that, that someone cannot reasonably and logically, meet the information that you want. I'm, but where we are today in Waterville Valley, it's not a big deal. I mean, go do it. I think I have a hard time figuring out where that would have an application in Waterville Valley today. Rezone the golf course to residential and do a residential subdivision, yeah, but I don't think any of us think that's gonna happen. Huh? No, I don't think it will. It wouldn't be proposed by me, I can say that, Cheryl.
What about for the people who own, the 1 acre lots and the subdivided?
I'm sorry,
The people who own the 1 acre lots, aren't there?
you don't have to come for subdivision approval, so this doesn't apply.
They didn't have to come.
We had that one,
Subdivide the lot. They have to come.
Yeah, I thought they did.
we did
They
have, we, remember, and I'm gonna need help from you guys. We had a lot up over by Greeley that was really steep, and the grades were as close as what Terry put down. And they wanted to subdivide it, and there was difficulty accessing the lot. And I don't remember who it was. Off the, who? Was it
The old
Gutierrez?
Atkinson property.
That one. That,
There's 2 lots and they wanted to combine them and make them 4.
Or 3 or.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, three.
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 Yes.
4, but then you suggested
Three,
3.
because of the steepness of the slope and the grading and the whole 9 yards. That to me,
No, but you already did it.
I
You
know,
went from
but
4 to
that's what
3.
I'm just saying. He said, I've never done it, but I just remembered that one in my head because of all the issues with those lots.
And how'd you make that decision?
I don't remember.
I mean, I think you looked at it,
You
and
looked at it, you made
you
that.
looked at
We
exactly
looked at
what
it,
he
but that
drew.
was a preliminary
It was a preliminary
consultation. It
consultation.
wasn't
They've
an
never come back
application.
for.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Right,
That was just preliminary consultation,
And we-
so we never had the
Yeah,
the official application, and he never came back.
but short of an engineer just shading the area that they already show you, excluding the wetlands, excluding the easements, you know, um,
But-
you know, what would, so they shade the area that Terry colored in.
I think
Is that all you want?
I think doing that preliminary consultation, I don't know if that was a design review. No, I think it was just preliminary, which is probably way too much detail for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, what was presented, we had enough information that we knew that there were gonna be problems with 4 lots.
Okay.
right,
And that's,
and that was
and that's
without
fine.
being shaded.
no, and
Right.
that's fine, but when you make this change, what do you want out of the plan? If it's for that area that he colored in to be shaded a different color, sure, that's a click of the mouse and that fills it in. Okay, but what does that tell you that you don't already know?
Well, taking into consideration what Bill was saying, I think he's right in a couple of areas, and that is that with regard to open space and snow storage, it's difficult to know at the time when you're doing your subdivision where that's going to be.
Absolutely.
And that can be handled later on when the building is actually being designed on that lot. I wouldn't have any problem with striking open space requirements and snow clearing storage from that paragraph.
Right.
I still think it's useful.
No, and I'm just saying,
To
all
have-
you're gonna get is a colored in
Yeah,
of the
lightly
map
shaded.
you already get. It will be shaded on each of the lots, if this ever happens.
Right.
But
And I
I'm just
think-
making sure that's what you are
Yes.
going for.
Right, and I think it's more than just filling in the space between the setback requirements, because I think that the wetland and the contours.
No, it's exactly what you
Right.
drew up there, the easements, the contours, the,
Well, I think, go back to this little sketch here. If this wetlands was just here, this is part of the lot, but it's not, you can't use it,
Right.
you can't put a building there.
Right.
It's too small to put a
You
garage.
can't put a driveway.
So I think what Terry's saying is.
I raise a
that wouldn't
question.
be- It wouldn't
well,
be just,
just like the area underneath the dotted line there before the setback, that would not be shaded.
yeah, exactly, right.
It's just what he shaded.
Right,
Yeah, and that's,
but how could you dictate parking where you don't know you couldn't?
Well, you're not gonna dictate parking. This is where you rely on the engineer or the developer to say, look, I wanna make sure I can get a house in here with a driveway, with parking, because they're both gonna be necessary. We're not saying, show me where you're gonna do it. You're just gonna say, this is,
Okay,
he's calling it buildable. You
okay,
got a plan that says, this is a buildable lot, this is a buildable area. And if they can't get a house in there with a driveway and a parking, it's not buildable. Because you're gonna what we're trying to avoid is having someone come in here with a lot that you can't get the house and the parking and the driveway on, and come in and say, I need help here, I bought this lot thinking I could build a building on it, bang, right to the zoning board of
yeah,
adjustment.
that's what you have the
And
ZBA
you don't wanna
for.
do that, you don't wanna be setting up lots to go to the zoning board of adjustment. This is what it's here to avoid.
But you could have two different people who look at a lot completely differently, because somebody wants to put a 10,000 square foot house on it, and another person wants to put a 3,000 square foot house
Doesn't
on
make any
it.
difference, if you've approved a lot that is buildable,
Yeah,
to some extent, because it has a buildable area on it, that the developer has said, this is buildable, my engineer certifies this is a buildable area. And someone comes in and wants to build a 2,000 square foot building on it, and it works, but somebody comes in and wants to build a 10,000 square foot house on it, it doesn't work. He can't go to the zoning board of adjustment and say, this is a hardship, because you can say, no, this is a buildable lot. You're just trying to put too big a house on it, that's all.
but I
it is to it.
guarantee you that somebody will go to the ZBA and they will say it is a hardship because of X, Y,
Well, I'm
and Z.
fine,
And that's up to the ZBA.
that's fine with me, I just wanna be in a position where they can't say, But it's an approved lot and you can't build on this lot, because you can say, yes, you can build on this lot.
But every subdivision that you've done, you can build on the lots that have been shown.
So we've been told. I don't know.
You have an engineering certification.
Doesn't say, it doesn't say this is a buildable lot. I know there's some sort of a statement that says, but I don't see those statements very often on these subdivision plans. On a commercial one, a site plan for a,
Site plan review.
yeah, the multifamily.
Yeah.
And there is a statement there, but not for the typical thing. I don't think this is asking for an unreasonable thing. I think it's helpful to the planning board. I think it is one step closer toward avoiding the buyer going to the zoning board of adjustment. I see no reason to, although I will say that I don't have any problem eliminating the open space and the snow storage.
So Terry, you're saying that the shaded area is going to also include, the parking and access?
It tells me that someone has looked
I
at
mean, how is that gonna be depicted?
It's not gonna be depicted. This is why we're showing an envelope rather than a typical building. My original thought was to show me how you can do it. Show me the driveway, show me the parking, show me the house. But then it was determined that, yeah, we don't wanna pin the guy down that much. Just show me the area within which you can build a building and satisfy the requirements.
So maybe we need to change the wording. Instead of in relation to, is to as restricted by, and then just put the couple of things in there that you wanted. Because in relation to is confusing.
Well, to me, in relation to means shown on the same plat. Because the contours aren't necessary, I mean, you wouldn't want to be eliminated for showing just restrictive contours.
No, as restricted by wetlands, as restricted by setback, That's basically what you're asking is to have it show what's not restricted by something, by one factor or another.
Not an outrageous statement, but I don't necessarily agree. I think relation works, but it's up to the board if they want to change it. I wouldn't change it to restricted, but
I don't know, I don't necessarily see that much value in it.
Nancy, you
I think either way works. Here is probably a little more clear, to be honest.
okay,
But,
that's true.
but it sounds like you're getting down to it, that you want to eliminate open space requirements, parking, and snow clearing storage, because you can't
We
always.
said not parking.
I'd hold on to the parking because
How can you
I know.
restrict, that's impossible, I don't understand that.
well, because all I'm saying is the developer, when he's making that, if I was the developer and I had that envelope that I had to show, I would be at my desk showing a rectangular building, showing parking, showing driveway, and say, okay, no, if somebody comes to me and says, prove to me that's buildable, that I can show them that scale. But we don't want to pin them down to that. And if you don't say that parking has to be included, then you're just gonna draw one big old building throughout the whole thing and say, we'll take care of parking other ways.
When we think about how our decision on the Gutierrez area went through, it was based entirely on access. And that's something that you didn't even show there. So I think that's something that we would want in the shaded area is where are the possible means of access to the property.
Well, that's on.
It's on there.
It's on there.
Where-
No,
No,
here.
not the
It's
picture, it's in the
wording.
It's in the
but it
language,
doesn't
but it's
show
not
it.
in the
No,
shading.
right.
And
Oh,
so
I
you
see,
haven't
okay.
actually demonstrated.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't
you
realize,
want it
I
to be
didn't
shown.
put the access in. I'll put the access in.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, yeah, but you're
how
not-
would you
no,
want that to be
Well,
shown?
you don't. I think at one time we had talked about doing that, but we didn't want to pin the developer down to a particular configuration.
But that's like the whole, like, if we think about the Gutierrez, like, that was the whole crux of our issue.
It
is
was.
that There was or wasn't access. So, I mean, that's the thing that if we there was a way to demonstrate visually, there is an access to this parcel, like, wouldn't that be awesome? So I'm just wondering, is there a way to show that?
Well, the access really depends on where the building's gonna be.
Yeah,
Well, no, I mean, you've shown now, here's the building envelope, it's shaded. Can you, why not
Well, maybe you could get
have
to us
some
three
way
or
of
four different
showing
angles.
where's?
Yeah, there's
Well,
a,
There's
That-
should be
Yeah,
several.
but can it be shown by a squiggly line or somewhere, like, why
some
not?
towns do require that you show the driveway to,
and the mo- the
If
most
if
running
that's, I mean,
Cascade Ridge,
that's
They do.
the
those
entire
accesses
crux of
were
our
shown,
issue, why not?
the road cut.
Yeah.
The,
you're
the
cut.
rough Moose Run we showed, we as the developer determined where the driveways were gonna
Yeah.
be
Right.
on almost all the
We
lots.
showed where the road
We
cut was.
didn't do that at Cascade Ridge, I don't know.
No, you did. You
Yeah,
you had
yeah.
little, you had,
We
they didn't go very far into the lot,
Yeah.
but you showed where it
Just
came
the
off.
road
We showed access.
The road cut.
the reason, I don't like
Because you
that.
built, you even built it that way. You had the little,
Yeah, you even built a way, that's the key. You see, the problem is, you're gonna end up with driveways that are shown on the plan that aren't the ones that are,
That people
but
want.
that's okay.
yeah, I know, but it's almost
but-
inevitable.
That's
that
not
the
what
plan-
you're
No,
showing.
But that's
That's
not what you're showing on the plan, and that's not what he roughed in. I'm sure if somebody had come to him and said, no, I want the driveway up here because I want the house to look this way, being totally different what he envisioned that parcel for. As long as he takes away the roughed-in driveway and puts the and gets it okayed with Public Works or whatever, and it doesn't affect drainage and everything else that we do when Chris looks at the building plan, what would be the problem with moving the driveway?
I just don't see why you would pin it down further than you have.
You're just showing that it is possible to get a driveway in there.
Why not show where the parking needs to be? I mean, you know.
But the parking is within that shaded area. You're asking for a certification by the engineer that the shaded area will take care of parking, the building, the open space, that's what you're asking him to do. Or,
I mean, I have no problem if you wanna add, demonstrable access.
I think the plan already does that because inherently when you show the wetlands, when you show the setback, when you show the easements, the remaining land is what they have to work with. And how they configure it within that remaining land, you don't care. And in fact, on Cascade Ridge, you had one person who left a big boulder or something in the middle of the property that everybody else thought would definitely be taken away, but they wanted to use it, so they used it. I mean, people have weird ideas, but what's weird? It's what they want. I think the information's already there.
I see what Terry, I think, wants to go with this. I mean, it's an added visual, I guess. Right?
Like I said, it's a click of a mouse from an engineering standpoint. When you're doing AutoCAD, you just say, okay, color in this space.
Well, it requires more thought too, because the developer has to say, can I build a building on this lot?
But Terry, that's what he's already telling you. He shapes those lots and he puts one at 0.56 acres and one at 0.73 acres and one at 0.50 acres because they're buildable that way. I would think.
Then I don't know why he would have any problem just saying that. This is the buildable lot. This is the buildable area. I don't understand the resistance, I guess. What is it that the developer is being pinned down to here that is so that's so reluctant to do?
The information that you're talking about, Terry, is good information. At Cascade Ridge, I hired a land planner aside from the engineer, to specifically do a graphic representation of the subdivision, showing the driveway, showing the building that takes advantage of the views, and showing parking garage and all that. And that was part of the information that a buyer needed to do the due diligence they needed to do to buy a lot. Okay, where can I build on this lot? What views am I gonna get from this lot? How does the building on this lot relate to the building on the next lot? And my concern is that you are, to a degree, confusing due diligence that a buyer should do and the reasonable information that a planning board needs to determine if a subdivision is creating legitimate building sites. And I think your subdivision regulations and your zoning regulations actually do a pretty good job of making sure that almost all the information you want is there. The problem is, everybody has different ideas on lots, and the information that you're asking, in all likelihood, may have very, very, very little to do with what someone wants to do to that lot. I mean, I'm always amazed when somebody comes in and goes, because they have to get my approval to build and say, here's what I want to do. I go, are you kidding me? Don Jasinski and I were birds of a feather on this, with people who want to do things to lots that the lots are not appropriate for. And they'll keep coming in. And as houses get bigger and more expensive, that envelope's gonna keep getting pushed. I think the information that you're trying to generate is good information, but I think it's due diligence on the part of a buyer as much as it is the responsibility of the planning board. And I've got one more question as the practical application for that, because I said I don't think it applies to anything I want to do, but I'm wrong. If this is all my C1 land adjacent to the Black Bear Lodge, that big parcel land,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna subdivide off the piece of land for Green Peak condominium, the subdivision is this piece here and all of this piece here. What do you wanna see on this piece when I come in to subdivide it? To meet this regulation.
Buildable lot. I don't think it's that complicated. In that particular case, you would show the contours, the setback requirements, the wetlands, and then you would shade an area that said, this is a pretty big buildable area, but it isn't a buildable area.
You have that in your subdivision regulations already. What do you want in addition to the subdivision regulations to comply with this new wording you have here?
Well, the way that it's written now, I understand what your argument is now, because you're saying, if I'm gonna subdivide this and I don't propose a building, then I'm not required to show that. Where in the way that the application or the subdivision approval application goes now, it calls for a plan, and under the title, or under the paragraph buildings, it says locate all existing buildings and locate all proposed buildings. So, I guess I had interpreted that as you have to show a building on the lot. And you're saying no, because you're not proposing a building, you're not gonna show one. It was my intent to not pin somebody down who was doing a subdivision to have to show the building then, because they wouldn't have any idea what the building was gonna be if they were just gonna sell the lot. Maybe I had a misinterpretation of the zoning ordinance to begin with. I personally don't see the harm, even with your example. You're saying it might be redundant if someone, what you're saying is, look, you've got all this piece, you got this piece, you got this piece, you got this piece, you got this piece, so why don't you put it together in your head, rather than have the developer put it together for you? All right, well, it's feasible, and you're saying we're smart enough to be able to put all those things together and determine whether it's buildable or not. Well, if we're smart enough, so is the developer. And if the developer can't do it, then how do you expect us to juggle those things? We're not into that business really. So I guess I don't see the harm in it. Whether it's necessary or not, I guess that's up to the board to decide whether it's helpful in their determination as to whether or not a lot is buildable.
Bill, aren't you on the hook yourself when you sell a lot to an individual? An individual's due diligence will be only so much. You, as the developer of that lot, should know that that lot, in fact, is a buildable lot before you sell it. And your hat is on the hook when you sell that lot, because if he comes to us and says, I want to put this, house on this lot, and he says, I want a 10,000 square foot house on this lot, and you say, no, I would think it would be up to the person who is selling this lot as a developer saying, this lot can only house X number of square feet, this particular lot. Would you, you as a developer, is that what you in fact do? Put yourself on notice that I've told them that they can't put a 10,000 square foot house on this lot, that they in fact can only put a 3,000 square foot house on this lot?
No.
No.
Because how high do they go? Is it on a sloped piece of land? Do you have basements that are opening out? How big a garage? All of these factors come in together. And certainly there's a representation by the developer and whoever sells it that it's a buildable lot. But I'll tell you, let's all be.
I know what you're saying.
Mark and I are aware of somebody who is about to come in, apply for a variance. It is unbelievable to me that somebody would even think of that. On this line, it's like,
But he wants to.
It's like, what? But we have no control over that. They're gonna go to the ZBA in any event, Terry. It's not your fault, and it's not my fault.
He's
And
just
it
not
isn't-
hearing what he wants
People,
to hear.
people,
He has a different vision for
Okay.
that lot than I think anybody else would.
but he
But
was
that's
aware of
his
it when he bought it.
vision. And he admits that he was aware of it when he bought it,
Okay.
but he has a different vision that he
It's
wants
just-
the ZBA to go through.
Okay.
And if he can make his case to the ZBA and they accept it and grant the variance, that's the ZBA's call.
So,
You didn't create an unbuildable lot when the planning board approved that subdivision. It's buildable, but not for this person.
so if I come and buy a lot from you and you tell me it's buildable. Now I'm going to be restricted as to what I want on this lot, being the contours, the easements, the setbacks, everything. That will hinder me or assist me to build whatever I want. And I won't know that until I purchase that lot that you have got for sale, correct?
Well, I
Hope
I
go
can
up
tell
and
you
look
what
at
our
that.
advice is.
Well, I would, yes.
I can tell you what our advice is in our office, and I would venture that it's not standard in the industry. If someone says that, I wanna come and buy this lot here, and I wanna build we'll say, why don't you put a deposit on the lot? Make the purchase contingent upon you getting a site plan for what you wanna build that fits on the lot.
Okay.
And if you can do that, then buy the lot.
Okay.
But, we've been here a long time, we're gonna be here a long time. We don't wanna end up in a bad position, so we're really careful about doing that. Is that true in the industry? No, you can go to, or used to be able to go to Arizona and buy a lot in the desert with no water, no sewer, no power, no nothing, and their regulations are in place now, so you can't do that, but, buying.
So
I don't-
primarily, whatever you're saying to me about building this initial lot, and the onus is on me now to get a site plan for the proposed home on that, would alleviate, Terry, a lot of this stuff.
But you can't force people to do
I know.
due diligence either. And it varies. How steep a driveway do you want? I don't want a driveway steeper than 8%. I don't care if my driveway is 12%. You know, both of them are allowed in your
Yeah, come to
zoning,
my house.
so, you know, I mean, it's just the parameters are so big, it's.
Yeah,
When you say the developer already makes, or the engineer already makes a statement that these are buildable lots, are you referring to the statement that he says that this land is suitable for development? Is that what you're talking about?
Something in this regulation
Yeah,
says
there's a-
that there needs
I
to be a
think there's a
statement that
requirement
says
in there.
it's suitable for, the land's suitable for.
Yeah, I think it says that, I think what it means, Bill and Mark, is that when you take this large lot and you subdivide it into 5 different lots, that this is a suitable lot for being developed. I don't think it says that each individual lot
Okay.
is buildable, so I
You're
want to
probably
back
right.
up on that.
What-
Yeah, you're probably right.
But going back to your drawing there, if they simply shaded the area that you shaded, okay, is that what you're looking for?
That was my intent.
Okay.
Now, some other things have come up here, like the access to the driveway and so
Yeah.
forth. That, in the storage area, how do you include that, and how do you, you know, I don't, like I said, I don't mind backing out open space and storage area because, snow storage area, because they're kind of,
Mhm.
they don't really know until you actually put the building.
Well, and the open space may be covered by the setbacks.
It might be,
wherever they
I mean, so
can
it's just kind of a ambiguous thing, and I think it can be considered buildable. I think you have to, I would like to be able to rely on the developer's engineer to tell me, this is buildable, because I've looked at the contours, I've looked at the snow storage, I've looked at the packing, and I know that can be done. Granted, the information is there, but I don't trust myself to be as thorough as the engineer that's gone through this, looked at this thing day after day and designed it, broken it down, and shifted things around and got the most out of it that they can. I don't think that statement that it's a developable lot covers that. And I'm still very much in favor of showing the buildable envelope. Now, as amended perhaps by the open space and the storage. But I don't think all this discussion really hasn't convinced me otherwise. I don't know how the other board members feel because they're just sitting here.
You're thinking,
Whoa.
So there.
If all the information is already available, what's the harm in shading it light gray?
there's no harm, there's just, is there value added? That's the question.
The way he's written it now, there's stuff that I don't know, I would not know how to comply with. And again, you know, in relation to wetlands, setback requirements, open space requirements, access, parking, and snow clearing storage, I don't know how to do that. I honestly do not know how to do that.
Well, Terry's just asking, I think, for show walls, show the setbacks, the wetlands, the contours, and now maybe potential access to the lot from wherever they're gonna access it from, and shade in the rest. What you do with it, or how you build it, or position the building, or whatever, is, at this point, who cares? But
Has nothing to do with the information you just
well,
requested.
Yeah, I think you have to eliminate open space, parking, and snow clearing. It's just not a feasible thing to show.
Parking can be included in the setback. That's a building setback line, right? I mean, the driveway, the parking, that could all be within that setback area, right?
It has so much to do with the size of the house.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
What's
mean,
the footprint of the house? You tell me what the footprint of the house is,
I just.
Yeah.
Well,
and I can do it pretty easily.
Yeah, I know, but I guess that's my point, because all I'm saying is someone
That's
has
my
to,
point
at some
too.
point, someone has to sit down and say, it's feasible to put a house here with parking and a driveway. That's what I'm asking the developer to do. I'm saying, you don't have to show me, because I don't want to pin you down as to what how you determine this envelope. I just want you to show me that it's feasible to build a house here. So that when someone says, why did you approve this? I can say, well, the developer's engineer has gone through the process of determining that it is indeed, you can put it buildable, because you can put a house, you can put parking, and you can put access in there. Therefore, I'm comfortable with it. You know? But I don't trust myself to envision what the developer had in mind he says it was, or without showing me that he's gone through that process. It's the record, I'm the guy for the record, I like to have that record there to go back and say when the guy goes to the EPA, no, look, right there, it's buildable. The fact that you wanna build a bigger house, that's your problem. Take this to the ZBA, say this is buildable, but I'm still asking you to let me do this so that, the ZBA has something that they can fall back on.
Do you need a visual, or can it just be a statement by the engineer that a minimum size house is feasible with?
A statement is better than what we have now.
I mean, since you can't specify square feet, but you can specify the square footage of the footprint.
The footprint.
I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna tell people what the footprint.
No,
of
I mean the
building's gonna be.
maximum, no, not the specific footprint, what a maximum footprint on that lot could be.
I'm not gonna
Is
make
that
that
feasible?
representation either.
I
See, the problem with
This
that,
to me,
I'm real careful about the
I'm agreeing.
representations that I make with property when it's sold. And I don't wanna represent the size of that footprint. I don't wanna do that. That's not an assumption I wanna make.
This is, I'm agreeing with you that I think it's a little bit
maybe you're
redundant.
just asking for a statement that it's feasible to build a minimum sized house with parking and snow clearing and all that stuff, and you want an engineer to state it for each lot.
So what's your version of minimum size?
Well, there's
She's not asking for a
requirements.
specific
That
thing, she's
there's
just
a-
saying that it's buildable.
Yeah, it's a feasible buildable lot, 'cause
You're
saying-
just
saying
asking
that-
for someone to
that we're not
verbally say
getting that.
feasible.
No, not verbally, you're saying. we're
Well,
saying-
okay, written on the plan, buildable.
Cause you're saying we don't get that for each lot, and you're saying that's what you want, because this stuff we can't really see.
Yeah, all lots in this subdivision are capable of a minimum house with access, with snow storage, with, whatever you wanna list out there.
Right, based on all these requirements.
Each one of these individual lots has been determined to be buildable with taking into consideration open space parking and
Yeah.
access. and so
Yeah.
forth.
So the ZBA can point to that when somebody comes in
Well,
front of them.
it's watered down, but
So it gives them some legal basis, because the truth is, there's so many potential futures where people can put posts down and build over the wetlands, you can build over any wetland. I mean, you don't know how big a house is.
I'd have to say, although I hate to back down, that sounds like it does satisfy what my initial requirement was. Gosh, I put a lot of work into this.
But it's okay, it's like, it takes a team of different thinkers.
Democracy at work.
Don't consider it as losing.
A partial victory.
I guess probably it would accomplish most of what I would have hoped to accomplish right away.
Because I think your goal is a big goal. I think so.
I know.
As a developer, how do you look at that?
A statement?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. I think it's really important that we sell lots that are buildable, and that we represent that. I don't have any problem doing that.
And we
do
we
it.
communicate-
Next month, come
Let's
back
do
with
it.
more language.
Yes.
Let's do
So
it.
I don't know if we
Write it so
need
that
any
you
language,
write
do you?
specific wording, so that they have to say in relation to all these things.
Yeah, that's what I would
So
do. I
they
would-
have to specifically consider snow storage and
All
all
right.
that stuff.
Bearing that in mind, trying to accommodate Bill, I would suggest that we table this, at least this particular portion of it for another month, and I'll look at the wording and see if I can word it for people.
Any wording to capture that, because right now he has to provide a statement that says you're buildable lots. And all we're asking for is to say they're all buildable lots.
No, it doesn't, the statement right now doesn't say that, it just says the land is suitable for development, that's basically what the statement says.
Just change that paragraph, Terry, to modify the addition.
Add it to it.
Use that same, then you're not adding any other, just modify that language. Because it's not you're thinking of it as a
Yeah.
statement of the big lot, just, and, you know, that any developed lot.
Okay. Can I have some time to think about the word you're gonna force me into this today?
No,
No,
Can I add one other thing? Think about using the word for the intent or something, because we do end up creating lots that are not buildable lots. And I think we wanna maintain the ability to do that. You know, sometimes you have for example, in Moose Run, there's a lot in Moose Run, doesn't have any roads, doesn't have any utilities, doesn't have any access. You know, we created that lot, it's a,
Open space or something.
it's a open space lot, it might be a future lot for wetlands mitigation, it might get donated to the Ray Center for a cute little place
How
on the
about if we said
river.
unless otherwise
or
noted on
some-
this plan and you could
So,
note it as
you know,
well.
if the intent is to build on the whole lot, then yeah, we ought to say that. But I don't wanna say, yeah, all of this land or all of these lots can be buildable if indeed there's here's a lot, it's not buildable. You know, we'd be clear about that.
All right, but would it be to your satisfaction to say in that note, unless otherwise noted in the field of the plan, and then on the plan, those particular lots that were not meant for development be titled, the actual note that says, look, this is a, this is
Something like
open
that.
space.
Or what would happen if what would happen if the athletic club wanted to buy a piece of land adjacent to them for parking? So somebody had to subdivide that land to give it to them. There's no building proposed on it. It's not, the intent of that thing is never to build a building on it, but they want to subdivide the land to sell it to the athletic club for parking. Just what you don't want, there's sometimes some unintended consequences of these regulations, and you go to do that, and then you say, well, you know, it says here you need to do, it needs to say this, and it doesn't say this. Yeah, but the intent isn't to do that. So there ought to be some wording in there that the lots are suitable for their intended use. I don't know, I'll let you work on that,
Thanks a
but
lot.
just, you know,
Okay, let me see if I can figure
sometimes that
something
stuff
out.
says stuff and we get caught in a bind.
Right, I understand what you're saying.
And I'll leave that in your bailiwick. I'm gonna go to yet another meeting. Thank you all very much.
thanks,
you.
Bill.
Well, all right.
oh, we have the second one. But why don't I, where's the, move this all to the next meeting? I can
Good
leave the
idea.
public, I can leave the public
Hearing
hearing
open,
open and
adjourn it to
to
November, what day is it? November, it's in green,
14?
November 14th. At
But
8
no,
AM.
the public notice, though,
You don't need to renotice it because
I
you're
know,
just,
but now we're gonna significantly change this. You know, this outline,
I don't think you're changing the intent. You may change the words and you
Yeah, I
may
guess so.
change where it's, but
okay,
you haven't changed the intent of
okay.
the modification. I need two things. I need the CIP subcommittee.
Okay.
And on the 30th, please mark on your calendars, the 30th of October.
Yeah.
There'll be a combined workshop of the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board to discuss future master plan development, future master plan development concepts with the Waterville Company,
So this is a joint meeting?
a joint meeting.
I have to run it?
No, I think either you or Bill has to run it.
8 AM.
I think Bill has to run it with you.
That's a Wednesday.
Yes, it's a Wednesday
At what time?
at 3 p.m.
3. Sharon, you'll shoot us an email? Thank you.
Yes.
What time?
3 p.m. Oh, you won't be there?
I don't think I'll be able to, no. We're meeting, for next morning early.
Okay,
I'm not sure if I can.
okay.
Everybody who's left is now gonna be on the CIP.
So you need a committee for the CIP?
I need 3 members, I
I'll do
can't
it
have
again.
4.
I'll do it again.
And, okay, you were on the building committee.
Yeah.
Terry, you wanna do it, you, Bob, and
Yeah, if
Cindy?
Chris will allow me on it, I'll,
Well, Chris doesn't wanna see your face on it, but,
Okay.
so Cindy, Bob, and Terry.
Okay.
Is that okay, right?
Yep.
Okay, and our goal is, we're gonna meet between now and the November meeting. We're gonna bring a CIP to the board,
Okay.
for consideration in November.
Okay. And
yes.
she'll send us an email as to
Yes,
when.
we'll,
Okay.
please, yeah, we'll send you a couple, 3 dates and times, and
Okay.
we'll pick one of those.
All right.
How's that?
Good.
That's good.
Okay. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
I gotta go lick my wounds.
Just one more thing, I just want the minutes to reflect the appreciation that the committee put in on the time on the parking and sidewalk.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely, that's great. So you guys are gonna present this to town meeting and speak for it?
Hopefully, yeah. And I'm hoping this, like I said,
If
I'm
that
hoping this
Meeting
bus,
moderator lets you.
this shuttle thing works out for.
Maybe
for a
she
trial
sucks up
basis.
to him.
Gonna
Yeah,
hold it down
exactly.
to 2.5
Suck up to the
minutes.
moderator.
Yeah.
Can I please have 12 minutes instead of 10?
We'll let Wendy do that
Hey,
one.
you know, you guys,
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Second.
All those people left?
Go ahead, Terry.